there are lots of the components of your onboarding process that, can also improve while also reducing leadership workload. So in short, there's kind of four core things. There's reps need the information, right? I need to know about the homeowner, what we're selling to them, the canvassing process, the inspection process, whatever, the basics of the model, right? What does success look like? Who are we selling? What are we selling? What's the sales system? So those are kind of the core informational components of onboarding. And so, usually every company is a little bit different, but most companies will, in an onboarding class or something like that, spend 10, 20, maybe up to 30 to 40 hours repeating the crap that they think that they need to understand to ramp up into the role, right? So that's a big time suck. The second thing, and just for, an extra note too, when a rep comes on board, and you know this already, when you spend 10, 20, 30, 40 hours with them, they don't remember everything, right? They forget 80+% of the information in, many scenarios. And so the only way to resolve that is through repetition, right? So you can't repeat training live over and over again. That would be a nightmare and not reasonable. But when you have hypothetically Green Tech University, you can have reps go through it 1 to 2, 3, 4 times in the first 1 to 2, 3, 4 weeks and reduce leadership workload, but also increase information retention at the same time. The next thing that is ideal, right? If I were to come on board, not only would I get the information, but what you want for me to do is you want me to master the pitch side too, right? So I don't just need to understand the A to Z sales system, but I need to understand the communication layers of the sales system. So maybe that first one is knocking on the door and going through the canvassing pitch to get an approval for me to be able to jump on the roof and do an inspection, right? That would be the first major, kind of communication step within the sales process. So ideally, and this is impossible to scale live, which is why typically attrition is really high, but ideally reps would get repetition in role play and get feedback based on how their role plays are doing. So in short, you can see this later, but we have a whole system where we can automate role play. So as an example, we can take customer profiles of a homeowner. We can take your canvassing script, the top objections, et cetera, the 2 to 3 core communication stages within your sales process and automate role play. So, I'm a rep, I can go through Green Tech University multiple times, and on my downtime without your live time investment is I can, practice the canvassing pitch and get feedback and have real sales conversations at scale to master the scripting in the first 2 to 3, 4 weeks, helping the ramp up process. Okay. The third thing reps need is coaching, right? So if I get the information and then I'm practicing pitch through role play, kind of the last cherry on top from a training perspective is that I'm getting coaching based on the real sales conversations, in your case, that I'm having on the doors. So if I'm actually doing the work and getting out in the field and knocking the door and having the conversations and going through that initial learning curve, the ideal is that either tech or somebody, if there's leadership, is with me providing feedback on how those sales conversations are going, at least at some level at the beginning, so I can close the gap in my learning curve and get good. So the three kind of training, components that can get really efficient and not be so burdensome for you on the leadership side is you can automate the informational side, you can automate role play, you can automate coaching. The same platform that we automate role play with, there's a phone application. Reps can record their conversations in the field. It's kind of a DIY, they have to do it kind of thing, but they can record those conversations and get feedback based on how the conversation went, get graded, and let them know exactly what they need to fix. So those are some things that can help reduce the leadership workload. And all this stuff is crucial even when you have full-time leadership eventually, because it'll save them time and save them the kind of the grind too, and allow them to focus on more important things in the company. The last piece is kind of the structure of onboarding. So just because the training components exist, it's like, what does it look like practically? Pretty much the first 4 weeks of onboarding, every single task, every single day for the first 4 weeks, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 20 days. Need to be very clear. So here's the 6 things that you need to complete on Monday to be perfectly on track for Tuesday. Go through Module 1 of Green Tech University. Go through Module 2, Green Tech University. Do 5 role plays with the canvassing scripts. Get access to your CRM. Get access to your company email. Set up your Google Calendar. Show up to this meeting day 1, right? Or whatever the tasks are. Everything administratively, training related, activity related, whatever. Go into the field on Thursday if you make it that far with John and hit your doors from 5 to 8, whatever, right? So all
Yeah.
of that thing has to be absolutely clear. And within that checklist for the first 4 weeks, that's where kind of they get plugged into the training components. They go through the university 1 to 2, 3, 4 times in the first 4 weeks. Those are kind of the things that we can help organize and make the leadership not such a nightmare for you, right? It's still challenging, right? We're going to reduce leadership workload on the recruiting process. Imagine having a
Wow.
6-month roadmap in the leadership, right? It's very objective. It's, hey, here's where Green Tech's at. We're at XYZ in revenue. We plan to grow by 5x in the next 3 years to this. Here's going to be the leadership and leadership org chart and the sales team that's going to be required to scale that organization. So here's the 3 leadership opportunities that exist over the 3 years. Here's the objective paths to get into these leadership roles. And the first sales management ones are roughly a 3 to 6 month period where they have to come on board, and it's equal opportunity to everybody. And they have to come on board, and there's 8 things that they have to accomplish consistently over a 90-day period, right? You have to be a top 20% performer. You have to be engaged in 90% of the management meetings. You have to follow the sales process. You have to have, 70% of your claims have to be, approved claim, whatever, right? There's a list of 6, 8, 10 things that they have to consistently execute over a 90-day period. And those naturally screen out the wrong person. So whoever actually meets that, then they transition into leadership. So they accomplish these things in the first 90 days. And then in months 4, 5, and 6, you hold their hand and start to delegate all the leadership responsibilities to them. Here's team meetings, here's group interviews, here's final interviews, here's the management of the onboarding process, here's how we run reporting, here's how you work with Samantha to push deals through. And then by the end of 6 months, not only did you screen out the wrong, ensure that you advance the right guy in the first 90 days because the screeners were so tough to actually accomplish that you ensured that you had the right guy. But they're obviously bought into the organization. They love you guys. And then they're getting this a financial reward. And instead of paying them 70K right then, which is roughly 6K per month, it's, hey, you accomplish this in the first 90 days. And then you objectively qualify for leadership. You're a sales manager in training. Month 4, 2K base. Month 5, 4K base. Month 6, 6K base. And then after month 6, you take the reins and you're scaling up into your big boy compensation from there. That is the safest, best way to do it, right? So typically it's a few month kind of ramp up into having a decent income in a role like this. So I don't know exactly what it is like for you guys, but usually it's like if they stick it out and they crank out for 90 days and things start to get solid from a monthly income perspective on average. And so the goal is to get reps through that initial 90 days. And sometimes, it could be conservatively up to 6 months, right? But those first 90 days are crucial. Month 1, as an example, really simple. Hey, for clarity, this is you speaking to the people, in the recruiting process and also reminding them in the onboarding process, you will not see success unless you follow this system. The first 4 weeks, if you follow every task in the first 4 weeks perfectly, you will be perfectly on track for XYZ, just like we communicated to you in the recruiting process. So you're selling them on, if you do the system, then you're successful. If you don't follow the system, then you're unsuccessful. And then on top of that, they need to believe that the system is what's going to determine their success. And then also, there's a reward at the end of following the system. So usually for something like this, it's, hey, what does it look like to ramp up in a financial success? Let's say hypothetically for you guys, it's selling like 8 deals a month or something like that, two per week. I don't know what it looks like, but hypothetically, and let's say that you assumed that it's really a 3-month period to get there. Month 1, they do 2 deals. Month 2, they do 4 deals. And month 3, they get to 8 deals or something like that, right? Well, month 2, it's the checklist, all the little things that get them plugged into the system along with their 2 minimum deals. And it's like, if you follow the system, you can be an idiot and still get your first 2 deals. That's the bare minimum. If you do that bare minimum, which is just following the task, which will naturally result into 2 deals, then you get a $2,000 bonus on top of your commissions as you ramp up into the opportunity. So it's activity-based training pay. So you incentivize them at the end of the month in the first 3 months with 2K, 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 so they can make an extra $6,000, and which kind of replaces this investment into the sales leadership side, but is also more financially conservative because you're not going to bonus it out unless reps do the work. And so that kind of is to answer your question earlier, John, is like, it's clarity. They're sold on the system, and there's like some type of financial reward, ideally, for following the system. And then you guys know, hey, if they don't, like, the way that it ends up looking is there's 20, 25 tasks a week. If they don't follow that, at the end of week 1 if they're bought in, right? I'm either going to follow the process or not. So you can cycle them in and out quickly, out of sight, out of mind. And then your question, it's like, okay, all that sounds cool, but we're busy as heck. How do we actually, get it done, kind of thing, right? The way that we throw these things together efficiently is we typically, and you guys are sharp enough to kind of do this, map this out yourself. But really what we do is we go, hey, we map out a university structure like Green Tech University over 5 days. Because the way that we look at onboarding structures, you want the rep to get through the information every week. And if it's a 2 to 3, 4 week onboarding process, you want them to repeat the university 2 to 3, 4 weeks, depending on kind of the nuances. So we like to set it up in a 5-day sequence. So if you can imagine 5 modules or 10 modules or 15 modules, if it's 10 modules, they do two a day for 5 days, right? So that's kind of the general flow. And so we set up a structure for the university and we go, hey, here's the outline, the information, but here's kind of the general idea of the structure. Flush it out in whatever way that you think is best. But the next kind of big step, the big time investment for you guys, Samantha, is just getting the videos and then sending over those recordings to us live. And he sends over a couple hours of recordings Monday through Friday. And then within 2 weeks from there, we brand the LMS, we edit up the videos, we create documents, quiz questions, and we package it up within 2 weeks and boom, there's Green Tech University. So for recruiting, when you're converting people, especially into an all commission, potentially door-to-door sales model, whatever the nature of the model is, one of the biggest things that converts people into your model is actually the opportunities that exist in the future. So if I come through your recruiting process, I got to obviously like the day-to-day opportunity enough to move forward, but what's going to really excite me is the future opportunity that I can potentially earn as the company scales. So that is the most important piece in the recruiting process is the vision. Hey, Green Tech's going to scale from this to 30 million over the next 3 years or whatever. 99% of the marketplace, they don't wake up and want a 1099 door-to-door opportunity. So you need to get guys in the group. You need to sell them on you, the vision, the industry, why it's recession proof, all of those things, the company story, the plans for growth in the future, the opportunity, what advancement opportunities into leadership look like. And then people either go, heck yes, I love it, or I don't. Now, then they'll get into their one-on-ones and you close them up. You close in the one-on-ones if you want to hire them. And if they want to move forward, you close them up, you push them into onboarding. If they show up, great. If they follow the process, even better. If they don't, you cycle them out. And it's kind of rinse and repeat. It's a volume game.